he said something that really stuck with me, and it is kind of became my mantra for the entire conference, which was Bitcoin pragmatism. And that's what he sees where Bitcoin is now. It's no longer a maximalist dominated culture. It's a pragmatically dominated culture. And I think that's true. I think you can see it in the conference and the booths, but also the fact that stablecoins can be talked about, and it's not, no one's screaming like down with the dollar, boo, Bitcoin for life.
Welcome back to Bitcoin.com's Token Narratives, where we discuss the biggest stories shaping the Bitcoin and cryptoverse. I'm Graham Stone, repping the Bitcoin.com marketing function, and I'm joined by news and research gigabrain David Sensel, who is live from a Las Vegas hotel room. How you doing, David?
Pretty good. I'm exhausted. It's been a long week.
Is the conference over? Is it done?
Yeah, Ulbricht had the final keynote, and I think that finished about 2 hours ago, hour and a half ago. And so then that's it. The conference is over. David Bailey got on stage right after that and said, "Thank you for coming. We'll come back next year. Now go party." that was
you came back to your hotel room to do this podcast.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, let's have a little check-in here on the price before we get too deep into the conference stuff. So let me just share my screen. I got a little bit of a dip here. Bitcoin's at about $105, almost $106,000, and that is down around 6%. 5% on the week, so a little bit of consolidation, I guess you could call it. On the ETF front, Bitcoin ETF front, where we got here it is. We had the first big net outflow day recorded here, the biggest one since late February. This is after like 2 of 3 weeks of just like constant massive inflows. And
again, all seems pretty normal, right?
I guess so. I mean, technical indicators. I read a technical indicator article, and it was full of jargon, like if
RSI.
Yeah, if this price holds, then we're going to keep going up. If this price doesn't hold, we're going to go down. So.
It's like a classic price action article. Yeah,
exactly. Let me read actually a paragraph from it. This is from the bearish side of the take. Despite the prevailing uptrend, signs of exhaustion are becoming evident. Bearish divergences such as weakening volume during rallies, a sell signal from the moving average convergence divergence (MACD), and a stalling RSI raise caution. So there you go. There's your technical indicator word salad for the day. I don't know what's happening, but certainly there's a bit of a consolidation here.
What's your gut check though, Graham? How do you feel?
Okay, I had a bit of a long opened, and I just closed it slightly in the green.
A derivative
before this.
A perp.
Derivative.
Oh
margin.
My gosh. Okay, yeah. I see. Okay, I see. Yeah. Graham's dipping into the deep end. Oof.
Yeah, exactly. But I just closed it. Now I don't know. I feel like we've come up a lot from 74, 75. That was only 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Or 2 months ago, and yeah, I feel like we could be in for a little bit of a consolidation. You always hear this thing, people saying, sell in May. What is it? Sell in May and go away or
Yeah,
something?
I was just gonna mention that actually
Yeah.
right now. And you know the history behind that, right?
Enlighten me.
It was because all the New York traders would what's it called? Lighten their book before the summer vacation. And so they weren't going to be as active in the summer because of summer vacation stuff in the US. So they would sell in May and go away for the summer. So I think that's where it comes from.
Well,
it looks to be the case maybe this time around. I don't.
It's a nice rhyme.
I don't. Sell and May go away.
There's a lot of. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, like we've been talking about it for weeks, week after week, all of the bullish news, right?
Yeah.
And I've been seeing on the timeline increasingly people saying, like, kind of complaining, why isn't the price going up? There's just like day after day after day of bullish news. Bitcoin treasury company, like announcement after announcement. The latest one we have here in the docket is Trump Media. So it's not Trump. It's the Trump holding company that's Trump's not actually technically involved with. It's his family. They have secured supposedly $2.5 billion to build a Bitcoin treasury. So the Trump family's entered the game. Like
in a major way. Yeah.
In a major way. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I saw that on the timeline too. There were a couple posts that I saw this week of people basically quoting their friends, online friends, about that frustration. Like, when are we going to get a bull season? When is the bull season going to start? And the idea being is like, friend, mate, we're in a bull season right now, right?
Yeah.
I think what they're really saying though, if I were to interpret that, is when does the alt season start, right? Because I think all these people, especially crypto native people, they all were, including me. This includes me. They were I would say misallocated to Bitcoin, right?
Yeah. Underallocated
to Bitcoin. So you're trying to front run the kind of higher beta play after Bitcoin runs than you like previous cycles that would water or kind of trickle down into the alt space, which has not happened in a material way this cycle thus far. And then now we're all kind of chasing that high. And so if you get in at 70K or 80K and you're used to getting 200, like a 200% return, right? A 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x. 110, 112 doesn't feel too spicy.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, let's have a little conference, Vegas 2025, Bitcoin Vegas 2025 debrief. So
this was my first
thoughts?
Bitcoin conference, actually, my first American Bitcoin conference. So it was a new experience. Just the overall thing was, it was really well executed. It was large. The venue was amazing. It looked great. The Asian venues, I should say the newer venues, which are often in Asia and the Middle East, have a very kind of, I would almost say like a club look about them. I don't know if you could tell from the footage from the Hong Kong, Consensus Hong Kong or Dubai, but the lighting's all kind of like dark and purple. You know what I'm talking about? And the space is very that kind of new aesthetic, exposed steel and abstract shapes and stuff. This is at the Venetian, right? It's kind of got a a mid-century look to it, right? It's kind of like looks like a ballroom, and then the booths themselves are in this giant warehouse space. So it looked quite different than most of the conferences I've been to. And then, yeah, there's a bunch of themes. I would say the biggest thing that really was impressed upon me during this conference was mining. I've never been to a conference ever that had as impressive mining presence as this one, and it was truly, truly, truly impressive. It's probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen at a conference. Full stop.
What
ever.
are we talking about? What they're like doing fireworks and explosions or something? Like,
yeah, exactly. So no, this is like substantive. For example, this one booth, these good old Texas boys, West Texas, called Artemis Technologies. They brought one of their modular Bitcoin mining platforms. It's basically just it's the size of a American semi trailer, right? So it's that size and that scale, maybe a little taller too, like 50% taller. And it's just this giant thing of steel, and they just dropped it onto the conference floor, right? And that was their booth,
Cool.
And so you could walk up into it, and then it's just all steel, and you just see these racks that go for 15 meters or however long it is, right? Floor to ceiling, taller than you, like 2.5 meters tall. All the cables and the water cooling systems all throughout. These giant fans that are like, I don't know, 1.5 meters wide, that are lining the floor space, and you just get this. And I talked to the guy. He's this good old Texas boy. He's like, well, we could have spent $500,000 on Google Sense ads, but click, click, click. What is that? Instead, we thought, why don't we just bring this big boy to the conference and really show him what it's like? And it actually is quite impressive, right? When you
what's their any idea what their end game is for like coming to the conference? They're just trying to get investors or something.
Yeah, they're probably good because it's mining. Mining is capex intensive, which basically means you need a lot of money up front, and so it's not like, basically nothing like the rest of the crypto complex, where you can start a business with very little investment, and as the business scales, you just scale the money in. This mining is completely different. You have to put all the money at the front end, and then you have to execute, or that's it. You lose your business. So I imagine that they're just looking for investors to put their money into this thing. Anyway, but here's the thing though, dude. So you see that when you go into the mining section, you see this thing, and it's gigantic. It's huge. But then there were other miners too, and they also had like shipping containers, right? Full shipping containers, and the containers are lined with Bitcoin mining rigs on either side. Again, the same kind of thing, just like huge, giant steel boxes, and it really gives you a sense of the scope and the size, and I guess the opportunity, right? Like that exists here. And for me, as a person who's gone to a lot of conferences, it's a stark contrast to the booths, which are all like made out of plywood and neon lights, And this is the real stuff that they're actually using in their business, and they just brought it, and they're like, here you go, look, this is cool.
It is cool. Was it
very
running?
impressive? No. So the thing is, it would be impossible to run because the power constraints. And it produces so much heat. Like it was impressive to see all of the cooling involved in the thing. So you just got to look at the guts, and you're like, it's just quite cool.
Obviously, massive investments required there and technical know-how. So pretty cool to see like I mean, it's called mining for a reason, and like gold mining, it requires a lot of equipment, right? And capital investment, as you say.
Yeah. So it made me also. These are all not all, but a lot of them are American miners, right? And they're really pushing to have a presence in America. And as an American, I found that to be quite refreshing to see like a new industry that America can compete now with other countries that have, I would say, dominated mining for a while. Now with the regulatory change and all this kind of stuff, you can anyway. So that was probably the most impressive thing. I will say this though, like from the speeches that I saw and what people were talking about, I was a little disappointed with the amount of oxygen that the price took up. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah. Well, I don't know how you could be disappointed by that, because isn't that just what to expect? Like, that's what everyone cares about the most, isn't it? With Bitcoin?
I would say I would expect that more at a conference like Token 2049 Dubai, which felt to me more like a speculative conference, right? The spectacle, price appreciation. I thought, I guess in my mind, I'd never been to a Bitcoin conference, but more of a maximal kind of thing. Like they're in it for the technology
of it.
Yeah, freedom, tech, and uncensorable money. Yeah. But there's a lot of talk about the price.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of past those days to a certain extent with Bitcoin. Although, I mean, as we've talked about, the institutions who are the biggest buyers now, those are now their talking points. So,
yes, as we've talked about, exactly.
Yeah,
and it's funny because just from I would say the superficial level, it makes sense because the institutions already have a butt ton of money, right? They don't really care per se about the price, right? They're already wildly rich, so that they can spend time focusing on other things. All right, did you see the stablecoin thing that I put in the doc here?
Yeah, you want to play that little compilation of stablecoins? All right.
So to set this up again, everyone knows who's watched this that I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, far from it. I'm very pragmatic, and I saw this post because of Nick Carter. Nick Carter, who is also, I would say, famously not a Bitcoin maximalist. He loves to troll Bitcoin maxis because he's been a long time Bitcoiner, right? But he despises that kind of zealotry, I guess. Is that a word? Zealot behavior.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is a great compilation of one of the focuses of Bitcoin conference.
Stablecoin for Bitcoin. On stablecoin.
Man, there's still a minute left of that video.
Okay, so we don't have to
I'm not playing the whole thing. Shout out to Lysander for putting that together. That must have taken ages.
My guess is that they used AI. You can throw this, for example, into Riverside itself and ask it to, and then just Control F, find stablecoin, and then you can just cut it like that. Anyway, it's still a lot of work, but AI can help a lot now.
Good point.
So I wanted to actually ask you about this, dude, because I haven't quite formed an opinion on this or what it means myself, but so I'm still working through it. But what do you make of this Bitcoin conference? It's called the Bitcoin conference. Yeah. And maybe the topic du jour, seriously, of the conference was stablecoins.
Yeah. When I first saw this video an hour ago, my first thought was like, okay, obviously it's a Bitcoin conference. People are talking about stablecoins. Why? Because they need something to talk about. And like,
do you say there's nothing to talk about Bitcoin? Like Bitcoin it's kind of already talked to death, basically.
Well, okay. And the other thing that goes through my head is there was obviously a lot of speeches and fireside chats, right? I'm sure many topics were discussed, right? But stablecoins was one of them and often discussed. So, like, it's probably okay. Maybe was stablecoin the most discussed topic at the conference? Like who knows?
Definitely not. I mean, I'm sure
right?
if you did a compilation of Bitcoin, it would be like 4 times longer, right?
Exactly.
Bitcoin,
but this is probably top 2, 3.
Yeah,
after Bitcoin.
It's
So I don't know. It's just it seems kind of meaningless to me. It's kind of fun though, I guess.
So one of the things I talked about it in yesterday's wrap up, but I had the pleasure to interview Jeff Garzik, right, who helped work on Bitcoin, the code of Bitcoin with Satoshi himself or herself or whatever. And before that he worked with Linus Torvald, who helped write Linux.
Yeah,
crazy. What a 2 for 2 that guy. And anyway, he said something that really stuck with me, and it is kind of became my mantra for the entire conference, which was Bitcoin pragmatism. And that's what he sees where Bitcoin is now. It's no longer a maximalist dominated culture. It's a pragmatically dominated culture. And I think that's true. I think you can see it in the conference and the booths, but also the fact that stablecoins can be talked about, and it's not, no one's screaming like down with the dollar, boo, Bitcoin for life. Right.
So okay, that's a good point. So like the people involved see stablecoins as net accretive to the industry because like it's getting people at least into the crypto realm, for example.
And it's kind of like this sounds negative, but it's kind of like what can you do? Dollars and stablecoins are part of life, so we're gonna have them. We're gonna have them, and I think that's a healthy mentality, right? To have.
Yeah. Did you hear anyone talking about? Sorry to interrupt. Talking about stable coins on Bitcoin, because I've heard this a few times. Like it could be the infrastructure, like the settlement rails for stable coins.
Yeah, I mean, I had an interview with a guy who is a part of a Bitcoin L2 called David Seroy, and I think the last thing we talked about were stable coins, and I was asking him how they're made on Bitcoin, and they're made how you would imagine they're made, right? So Bitcoin is used as collateral, and then you get some portion of that as a stable coin. So I think the LTV can be like 40% or 50% or something like that. So you put in $100,000 of Bitcoin and you could get 50,000 of this kind of smart contract controlled stable coin kind of situation. So that's one way to do it. I think like Tether and maybe a couple others are just bringing their stablecoin to some L2s. So that's just a centralized one-to-one backed stablecoin, but it's running on the Bitcoin L2. So those are, I think, of the biggest ways that you're seeing that. And of course, the more like, what's it called, decentralized, people who like decentralization more and censorship resistant, they favor Bitcoin backed stablecoins more than they do Tether and other custodians coming onto the Bitcoin network. But both versions are coming on.
Right. Okay. So how about the JD Vance keynote? Anything interesting there?
Yeah, I watched this. I would say the first half or maybe the first 2/3 of the speech, I thought were kind of milquetoast or anodyne, right? It's just kind of boilerplate political talk, Bitcoin talk. So it didn't strike me as terribly interesting, or maybe that he didn't even write it himself, like this was just given to him. But the very last thing he ended his speech with was like advice for the Bitcoin community, and the way he talked during this, and the things he talked about, he seemed much more animated and passionate about. So I imagine as his life as a VC, his former life as a VC, these sounded more like his true thoughts. And so he had 3 pieces of advice for the Bitcoin community. And let's walk through these one at a time. And I want you to give me your opinion on this. So the first thing he said was the Bitcoin community and crypto communities, since they were kind of based on libertarian principles, the idea was about how to exit the system, right?
Yeah.
How to exit, how to get out. And he said, basically, if you try to do this, you're ceding political power. You're giving up power. And once you've given up power, you can't exit anything. You're done, right? You're what's it called? Your free will and everything is taken away. You're no longer control of your own destiny. So he was saying, stay politically engaged. This idea of exiting is not a good one.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Naturally, I'm inclined to, as you like the way that like Bitcoiners get into it. Yeah, like I'm out. I don't like. Don't need your government. I got my own money. Well, just let all that stuff burn. But yeah, I think his point that you're describing here is like that's a recipe for disaster, because at the end of the day, the government is not going away.
Yeah,
it's not going away.
And they're going to fill the vacuum, right? If you step back and say, I'm not going to be a part of the political process, well, you better welcome Kamala Harris and
yeah, exactly.
See what kind of regulation comes down the pipeline. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So okay. I thought that was a really spicy way. Yeah, I thought it was a spicy way to begin this, because here he is in the kind of the mecca of Bitcoin, and he's kind of starting off this thing with like, hey, the way you guys used to think about this is not only is it wrong, it hurts you, right? It actually hurts what you're trying to do. The second, I think, was more in line with everything he said, but he said treat Bitcoin as a strategic national asset. Again, he's a politician. This is kind of in political language, I would say, right? It's not just freedom money or a way to preserve your wealth, right? It's a way that can help a nation, right, and keep a nation strong, and something that can be used in times of need, things like that. So I don't know.
Okay, yeah. I mean, like that's the playbook of certain countries like Bhutan, who is harvesting Bitcoin with their excess energy reserves and then using it to fund their government.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think we talked about that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The last one was maybe the most interesting, because it was kind of out of left field. Baseball reference. Oof. It didn't really connect with anything he talked about before. So he said, he started this by saying this. And so I want to walk you through this first part. He said, in general, just in general, not 100%, but in general, people who like Bitcoin and crypto tend to be more conservative, and people who like and who are making Bitcoin and crypto companies and projects tend to be more conservative, and people who like and are making and running AI tend to be more liberal. He said, this is just generalization. He said, this is from my experience as a VC and from people I've talked to. And he said, Bitcoiners in crypto, but Bitcoiners in particular, because crypto people don't have as much of a problem as this, but Bitcoiners in particular need to stay engaged with AI projects and using AI. And he said, because that conservative energy, that conservative philosophy is going to be needed for AI, because AI is going to be very disruptive, potentially dangerous, and those kinds of voices need to be in those companies. And so he said, don't retreat into just Bitcoin and crypto. You need to engage and be a part of AI development because it's important that it's not just very liberal minds and voices and philosophies running these world-changing projects.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. And I think it's important to note that AI and crypto are connected because basically the crypto rails, all right, that's the financial rails for AI, or it could be, it should be. And so there right there is one avenue for people in the Bitcoin and crypto space to engage with AI. Like it's they're not completely separate things.
Yeah. I also think, though, for me, the kind of interesting part was, I think he was making not a plea, but he was, again, to me, all of this advice is kind of in an indirect way. It's a critique. He's giving criticism about the Bitcoin community, right? That's what advice is, right? You're talking about how to fix shortcomings. And in this case, obviously, you and I have seen a lot of crypto plus AI projects, right? We've seen tons. We talked about a lot. I can't really, I don't know any Bitcoin and AI projects, right? Like any Bitcoiners who are involved in any kind of direct AI project.
Yeah.
And I think he was addressing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the only thing I could think of is Bitcoin miners using some of their data centers to run AI models because it's more profitable than mining Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing on this. Like, this actually gives kind of evidence to support Vance's criticism. So I talked with a bunch of miners, really cool people, all of them. I can't wait to spend more time with them. But several of them, I mean, like, I don't know, maybe half, they boasted that they were not dirtying themselves with AI. They were only focused on Bitcoin, right? And this is a point of pride.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is still part of the Bitcoin culture. Like, no, we're focused on Bitcoin, you know?
Yeah.
So interesting ideas.
All right. And Michael Saylor also gave a big speech. Yeah.
Keynote.
So
he was a keynote for today, him and Ulbricht. Now, I'm not going to say much about this, but I one quote stuck in my mind from it. Saylor was doing Saylor things. I think he was someone I talked to during the conference, who was very well known, said that they had just seen Saylor at one of the kind of the more private speeches, and they were like, "Yeah, Saylor's doing Saylor things." He's like, he actually joked. He was like, "I think he's being a parody of himself," so he's like even more so he's like embodying those memes about himself. Anyway, the speech was interesting, but here, listen to this. So he's talking about, basically selling everything and mortgaging everything to buy Bitcoin, because that's the only thing that's going to go up. And at one point he gives an example, and I don't know how serious it was, but he was like, you could be a small business and you could buy Bitcoin and then get a loan, and Bitcoin goes up, so the equity of your business goes up, so you can take out you could sell equity or take out another loan because the value is higher, and then Bitcoin goes up again, and you can kind of repeat this process, right? And then he said, so you can become the first billionaire dentist. As in, like, that's how small of a business you could be running and doing the Michael Saylor strategy. So I don't know, dude. I heard that and it got a couple laughs, but I think directionally people might start doing this, and that worries me, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, let's linger for a moment on the Bitcoin corporate strategy. I came across this interesting tweet from Mike Ippolito, which I'm going to read, who is the founder of Blockworks, co-founder of Blockworks. Just give me a second. Bring it up. It's a bit long, but yeah. So some quick thoughts on the acquisition vehicle meta. So it seems like we found the 2025 equivalent of GBTC, right? That's the grayscale Bitcoin trust. I have no idea if these vehicles will achieve that level of scale and destructive potential, but make no mistake, this is leverage getting injected into the system. To spell out the risk, it's that these acquisition vehicles accumulate a lot of crypto at much worse terms than Saylor and eventually become forced sellers. I'm not sure people truly understand how much of a wizard Michael Saylor is. He financed the majority of his BTC buys with converts, so there's plenty of equity risk for investors, but little risk of liquidation. The first issuance he did for 650 million back in 2025 paid a 0.75% coupon for what is essentially an unsecured loan. These new acquisition corps won't get Saylor's terms, and they almost certainly won't be able to raise the capital unsecured. The most likely scenario is that the terms are much worse. There's a real liquidation risk, but investors will FOMO in because no one reads the fine print, and it worked for Saylor. It's an extremely reflexive feedback loop that, if it gets large enough, ends in a 2022-like sell-off.
Damn.
I think this is...
We've been talking about this, bro.
Close to what you've been saying for the last few weeks as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to see from someone much smarter than myself saying the same thing. Because often I feel like if I don't hear other people say it, then I feel like I must be missing something. But yeah, if you haven't watched the Michael Saylor keynote, dude, I do recommend watching it. It was wild. It had whiffs of, like, honestly, like the last cycle about it, just, and again, I talked to a lot of people on this at the Bitcoin conference about this, right? I brought this up because obviously we've been talking about it and it was top of mind for me. And people were instantly like, Saylor's not gonna blow up and this kind of thing. And it's always like, what we've been saying is like, no, we don't think Saylor's necessarily going to blow up. It's going to be people who are trying to replicate this strategy.
Yeah. So on that note, like, all the replicators, they're just getting ramped up now. So, which means that, and so it's going to be reflexive. If this does play out, you're going to see like the price has to go much higher as all these new entities pile in. So it's not a top signal, but it's something that will lead to a blow off top, and so you better be watching it.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. And yes, this leads to the blow off top, right? This leads to that parabolic, like, exuberance that just kind of gets unhinged. You could
argue that it's good for people like us who might be paying attention.
Yeah, but okay, so
but it's bad. It's, in the long term, it's bad because it's just gonna. The result is going to be another like wave of retail getting hurt and another like wave of people getting pissed off and regulation coming in, and
yeah, and dentists
it's not
losing their practice, right? Like
exactly,
dentists, like
a lot of, it will lead to pain.
Yeah.
So
okay, so I had a long argument with somebody at the conference today, and it was over a Jordy Alexander post. I love this guy, steady lads guy.
Yeah,
we've talked about a lot, and he really helped kind of again clarify an aspect of what Saylor's doing in just a very succinct way that I'm gonna steal from now on. So shout out to Jordy Alexander. But basically, in the clip, he was talking about like kind of the game theory side. So just forgetting some of the details, and it basically boils down to this. This is kind of a version of what Saylor's doing. So there's dumb money and there's smart money, right? And this exists in all markets, and that could be dumb money for various reasons: skill, experience, and access to information, right? So they lack skill, they lack experience, they lack the insider information, and then the smart money would have all of those things helping it. And so what happens is dumb money, which can be from very smart institutions or companies like that, but whatever. Dumb money and smart money both go into buying strategy. Now, the smart money, everyone thinks they're smart, by the way, right? Everyone thinks they're smart, but the real smart money, they know what the game is, which is, I mean, everyone knows what the game is. It's like a game of chicken, right? It's like a game of pump.fun. I know this is kind of a scam, but I'm going to get out first, right? Everyone says that all the way down, right? Anyway, so smart money, they actually get out first, right? So that's them. They win. Saylor wins, right? He wins. And then the dumb money, they get some percentage of their winnings and or losses extracted from them to the smart money.
The smart money,
right? Yeah. And so I was arguing with people who kept saying, but the stock is going up, but you can still make money, right? And I'm like, yes, but some percentage of even though everyone's getting money, some people are getting a lot more money, right? Yeah. So some of that wealth is being transferred to the smart money, who are actually benefiting much larger. And then, of course, when it stops going up, like when it goes down, well, then the dumb money is left holding most of those losses, right? And the smart money when it gets out.
Exactly. And I mean, if you look at Metaplanet in Japan, right? This is, the Japan Bitcoin corporate treasury company, right? I think they started a year and a half ago, December 2024 or 2023. And these days, like, first of all, Metaplanet is one of the has the highest trading volume. It has higher trading volume than Toyota. Right?
Yeah,
so it's like in the same ballpark. Okay. Now,
top signal.
They're also. I just was looking into this. I think they're trading currently at 5x the NAV, like the value of the Bitcoin that they hold. Okay?
So there's a 500% premium to the.
I think so. Yeah, and
good
right,
God,
and like
dude.
the people who got in early on that, like that's the smart money. Okay, now you think they're not like taking off some of their position now, right? Like, of course they are, right? And it's going to end in tears. But I would just say that there's one, in the case of Metaplanet, and probably with a lot of these Bitcoin corporate treasury companies around the world, there is one element, right, which adds to why it actually makes sense. Okay, there's several elements why it makes sense, but in the case of Japan, for example, if you hold Bitcoin as Bitcoin, you're subject to like 50% tax on your profits because it's considered income, right? But if you hold Bitcoin as a stock, like i.e.
by proxy,
Metaplanet, right? I believe the capital gains tax for stocks is maxed out at like 15%, right? So there's some reason there to hold that rather than the Bitcoin itself, right? So in a lot, and I'm sure it's the same in a lot of countries.
Yeah, that's important to note. That and again, I had this kind of long conversation, and I got pretty upset. So I apologize to that person, but it's
you got upset at someone. You got into a verbal fisticuffs with someone.
A little bit.
Never seen that before.
No, it's rare. It's very rare. But there's a misunderstanding where we can be kind of critical of this. This doesn't mean that Saylor's going to blow up and that a lot of people, even maybe most people, are going to make money off of this. But it's also the case, like you're saying, where that premium is just wildly out of line with where it really should be, right? Like the kind of true valuation kind of thing. And that difference, I think the Saylor premium is now much smaller. But like, let's take Metaplanet, for example. Everyone can make money on this, and that's fine. It doesn't, just because but someone is paying for that premium, right? When you buy Metaplanet, someone is paying for that premium,
Yeah.
And people were saying, but David, Bitcoin's going up. This is why it's good, right? Bitcoin's going to the moon. You're going to make money in the long run. And it's again, it's not about whether this is a good or bad investment per se, but I think the smart money is playing a different game, and the dumb money is playing kind of a simpler game, I would say. I don't know. Maybe I'm mixing it up now, but you kind of see this extractive force from the people who really know what they're doing and can time the markets, and everyone else who's really bad at that.
Yeah. All right. The last big headliner, I think, at the conference was Ross Ulbricht.
Yeah. Now, I quite enjoyed his speech, at least most of it. There were some head scratching parts, which I think I'll have to rewatch again just to kind of see exactly what he was saying. But I think there was again, going back to what Jeff Garzik said, there's this kind of overarching thing to me, which is Bitcoin pragmatism. And a large part, or I think the overall message of Ulbricht's speech was to stay united. And the importance of being united is to guarantee your freedom and to guarantee decentralization and to be strong enough to fight against those that are trying to kind of control you. Now, I mean, kind of again, like an anodyne message, great, but some of the details were pretty eye-opening to me to be said on the stage as a keynote for a Bitcoin conference. So here's a quote, right? "We want as many blockchain experiments as possible." Now, again, I agree with that, right? But could you imagine hearing that at like the Bitcoin conference even like 2-3 years ago, and getting applause? I mean, that to me was really telling about kind of where most of the Bitcoin community is now, where you can have someone on the stage say something as heretical as that, right? Like, this is a heretic. Burn him at the stake.
Only a few short years ago, that would have been seen as heretical. You would have been booed off the stage.
Could you imagine? We want as many blockchain experiments? Good Lord.
Yeah, big takeaway, I think, from the conference. Pragmatism. It's not, the Bitcoin maxis are not in control anymore.
Really not in control. Now, I mean, I can't wait to see on X some replies against this. I know there are the Bitcoin maxis are still out there, and they still have a lot of power. I think still concentrated in like Bitcoin Core, right? Those core devs and stuff are quite maximalist, and so but here's the interesting thing: Ulbricht is such a how do you say? He's kind of like such a symbol, right? And
Yeah.
For him to be able to say that, I mean, that's if it's his own idea, that's great. But if there's someone behind him, kind of like coaxing him to do this, then man, well played, you shadowy whatever. Because what a hard figure to attack, you know. I feel like, right. And the message again is
sure,
right.
Yeah,
the message is basically like, don't let the governments do what they did to me by being divisive and not realizing who the real enemy is. So then you're like, oh, I believe that, and then he's like, that means we want as many blockchain experiments as possible. You're like, oh, wait a second. So
yeah. Actually, on the note of experiments, I'm not sure if this quite qualifies as an experiment, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it. So there's this BIP 177 thing, which basically it's a proposal to kind of get rid of the idea of sats. So it's like a redenomination of Bitcoin. So instead of, the way I understand it, I could be wrong on this. I hope I'm not, because I actually made a video about it. But so, you know, like the base unit of Bitcoin, I think it's like 7 decimals, 0.000001 Bitcoin. The proposal is to make that 1 Bitcoin. So what that would mean is if you hold like 1 Bitcoin in today's terms, what you'd actually be holding are 100 million Bitcoins.
okay, I see. So
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, so a redenomination to turn Bitcoin into like a, I guess, shitcoin level.
yeah, basically
like denominations.
Would it affect? It wouldn't affect the protocol at all. Is it like there wouldn't be any code change, would there, or how would this? Is this
I don't know about the code,
okay.
But
yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. What do you feel about this? I personally don't. I mean, I get the impulse because Sats, it's confusing, right? You're like, Sat, what does that mean? You're like, oh, well, it's from Satoshi, but it means like some fraction.
Well, I like it, but the concern to me, the concern is that it would be confusing because
really
now
confusing.
Instead of there being 21 million Bitcoin, there'd be 21 quadrillion, or I don't know, like
that 21
much
number
larger number.
Yeah, that 21 million would lose its meaning, right?
Yeah, exactly. On the other hand, like, I think it'd be cool to stop talking about like, I'm going to send you a 0.000045 Bitcoin.
Also, what is it?
Right.
The thing that I can't. By the way, I hate this. This is one of my pet peeves. As you hear Bitcoiners say this, like, there's 50 million millionaires, but there's only 21 million Bitcoins. Yeah. Like it's a positive thing, because that to me just is like you sound already like a Rothschild elitist saying that. I mean, you know what I'm talking about? It's just it's a very kind of scarcity mindset, exclusionary thing to say about, you know, why you want to own Bitcoin, so you can have some and no one else in the world can have any. This is like, ugh, I don't. Anyway, this would be a way to kind of get over that kind of thing where
that's true.
You know what I'm talking about? Because like who can afford right now $100,000 Bitcoin? Seriously, who in the world can afford? What percent?
I mean, who has $100,000 of cash? Most people in the U.S. I've heard don't have enough to cover like a $700 emergency or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like I think it's like the upper 25% have $4,000 in the bank, right? So we're talking about like middle to upper middle class Americans.
Nobody has any savings.
$4,000 in the bank. They'll have a mortgage and all that kind of stuff. But right, like $100,000 Bitcoin is already wildly out of the reach of basically everybody on the planet. So,
all right. Another question I want to ask you: Did you hear anyone at the conference talking about the quantum issue?
Yes. So again, I asked Jeff Garzik like what he's most worried about for Bitcoin's future, right?
Yeah.
And I was surprised, but it kind of makes sense. So let me just answer your question first. He's not worried about it. He's not worried about quantum. And the reason he's not worried about quantum is he said there are tons of developers working on it right now. So we have brilliant minds working on it. They'll figure it out. So I'm not worried about it because it's already being worked on. He said the thing that he's most worried about, which is kind of a superset of quantum, is ossification. But he had a kind of a different definition of ossification, which means that things stop changing, stop developing. He said Bitcoin right now is at such a point where the protocol is so battle tested and works so well that maybe at some point in the near future, perhaps after quantum, it'll go for years where there doesn't need to be any change. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or a decade where there doesn't need to be any change. And because there won't be any need for a change for some number of years, developers, especially elite developers, will no longer be attracted to it or work on it because there's no work.
Wow. Yeah.
And then there will need to be a change at some point.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But then great genius developers, there's no one there, right? They're off doing other things because you're not. He said that worries me because we need, inevitably there'll have to be maintenance things or changes of some degree, and you have to keep world-class developers interested. And he's like, I don't necessarily know how you do that though, right? Like he said Bitcoin could become a victim of its own success.
One way that I've heard bandied about for how to solve this is when you have a few really large holders, let's say like Strategy, they're just going to be incentivized to like put out grants for development. But on the flip side, there is if they're paying for it, the issue is that they're going to be trying to shape it in the ways that suit them, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and like, what if it's governments, dude? What if it's not like Strategy? What if it's like the UAE, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's kind of unrealistic, but another option, I guess, would be a tax, like a developer tax, right? Like a tax where a pool of money goes somehow to developers, right?
Yeah. Still, I think you would have trouble getting world-class developers to stay, even if you pay them.
Because there's nothing, if you pay them, because there's nothing to do, right?
They could work their entire life. They could work their entire life and never have any code committed, right? Because it's nothing's needed. And so they're like, nah, I want something to be done.
Yeah.
During my lifetime. Yeah. So I don't know.
Interesting. So I guess maybe this is the case for something like Litecoin, right? The test net, the Bitcoin test net, where they are moving forward with more interesting things, or even Bitcoin Cash. Then at least because it's from the same code base, there would be some like learnings that can be applied from the advances they're making, and the developers working on those chains can apply that knowledge to Bitcoin when needed.
Exactly. Actually, was it Vlad from the Bitcoin Takeover podcast?
Yeah.
Shout out to Vlad. Awesome podcast. He was talking about Zcash. I believe it's Zcash. Good Lord. I hope it's Zcash. And he said that it's basically a test net too for Bitcoin and other lots of other crypto, just like base technology like ZK, zero knowledge proofs and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I think you're right. You have these other coins like this that are similar. It can kind of change quickly, right? Because there's way less investment on it.
Jeff Garzik, not too worried about quantum, but I did see that Jameson Lopp, I saw a clip from him. He's another well-respected Bitcoin developer and founder. of CASA, I think. Anyway, he seemed concerned. He was speaking at a panel. He did seem concerned about the quantum issue. And then I also, this week, there was a note from BlackRock in their latest prospective. BlackRock, of course, being the biggest Bitcoin ETF business. And they said, quote, in the perspective, the cryptography underlying Bitcoin could prove to be flawed or ineffective, or developments in mathematics or technology, including advances in digital computing, algebraic geometry, and quantum computing, could result in such cryptography becoming ineffective. So this is in their prospectus, like they're required to outline the risks. And so BlackRock, it's got quantum on their radar.
Yeah. I mean, Garzik basically said, quantum is what he's focusing on in the Bitcoin side of things. But again, I also brought up, so after he said all this, I said, how about like the security budget problem? And he was like, basically the same as the quantum. Smart people are working on it now. So it's a problem, but it's not to him like an existential problem. Like these are classes of problems. The ossification thing is kind of like a bigger thing.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it as long as people are working on problems, he seemed pretty confident. The thing that made him more worried, like existentially, is that people stop working on problems. And so he was like, I trust the people now who are working on the security budget and ossification. They'll figure it out. They have a lot of time. They'll figure it out. So maybe he's overly optimistic. I don't know. But I thought that was an interesting way of looking at it. And it kind of makes sense from that level, where the biggest problem would be if people don't work on problems at some point. But then otherwise you trust that people will figure it out.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool that you got to speak with Jeff Garzik. Very cool experience, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All
you know what's crazy though?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right before I was going to talk with him, someone from one of the booths came up and asked me, what are you doing over here? We had the camera set up and everything. And I told him, and he was asking about the cameras because he has a project, Bitcoin related project built on Bitcoin. And I think he was the CEO, but he also handles some of the media. And then I said, I'm really excited to talk to Jeff Garzik. And he said, who's that?
Okay.
This guy was not he wasn't a young guy either. I was like, whoa, that's kind of sad, I guess.
Yeah. Sign of the times. Pragmatism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else you want to discuss here today?
I just the only other thing I would say is how would I phrase this? Like I found myself being more of a wet blanket than usual during this trip. I mean, I kept it to myself mostly, but I just everyone's so excited, dude. So I mean, it's just like I thought before I went to the conference there'd be a lot of euphoria, but and enthusiasm, but everyone is like just super excited, right? And if you listen to any of the speeches or any of this, I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe it's because I've been PTSD'd. It's PTSD from previous cycles, but the all the euphoria and everything, and all the I went to a couple events and everything, and just young people, let's go run Bitcoin forever. I just made me like more and more curmudgeonly, and people were talking to me, but then I started feeling bad. Like, am I the problem here? Like, so I'm still wrestling with that now.
Yeah, it's interesting that you should say that, because that's how I think I would feel as well. Like, I don't know. I see myself as an outsider. I'm not going to go to the sports ball game and be like, rah. But it's interesting, right? That there's like Bitcoin has so many fans, and they're out there going to these conferences and getting super excited, and that's bullish. And then, of course, people are bullish about Bitcoin right now, because how could you not be with like what's happening in the macro world, but also the political world and the geopolitical world. And like the U.S. has $30 trillion of debt or something. The interest payments are like $100 trillion, $1 trillion a year they're spending on interest payments.
1 to 2, yeah.
Like this, the big beautiful bill is they've thrown away the idea of austerity. We're back to just like, yeah. So I mean, it's Bitcoin seems destined to pump, and you're at the Bitcoin conference. People are stoked.
But I would say the thing that made me feel the worst is, and so I don't know, do I keep going back and forth? We could talk about this later too, but like I started feeling guilty for feeling so wet blankety. So it's like, I was like, is this really, do I have like a pathological problem? Is this, should I just become bullish? Should I just get over this? But then I was thinking like, because I was really feeling like, man, maybe this is why I'm not going to make it, right? Because I'm always poo-pooing everything. But then I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe that's a sign of a cycle top when I'm just like,
I was just going to say that when you flip bullish, that'll be the sign. So Token Narratives listeners, watch out for that.
No, I'm just like,
if we finally convince David.
So it's
over.
Excuse my French, but it's been a bit of a mind fuck, because I'm just like wrestling with, I guess, who I am as a person, and then thinking like, you know what? Screw it. Maybe I should just go get Bitcoin tattooed on my
healthy dose of skepticism, very much needed in any financial markets.
Oh God. So yeah, anyway, it's been fun, but I can't wait to get home.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. So have a safe flight, and Bitcoin to the moon. Thanks for listening to Token Narratives. We're back next week. Adios.